So, you see what has happened here is that they've misunderstood what in fact is the most pleasing to Allah. What will bring them to Allah most directly. And there's a very famous hadith, which actually people have somewhat distorted its meaning, but the essence of the hadith speaks to this very point. The Prophet ﷺ quotes from Allah, so it's what we call a hadith qudsi. ما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضت عليه. My servant or slave, worshipper, does not come closer to me except by the things that I've made compulsory for him. This is it. Essence right there. We want to get close to Allah. We have to start with the things which are compulsory, which He has defined as compulsory, what they call the fard, or the wajib, the compulsory things. This is how we get closer to Allah. When we start with this, and we build on that, we get closer and closer to Allah. Because the Prophet ﷺ continued to quote Allah as saying, وَمَا يَزَالُ عَبْدِي يَتَقَرَّبُ إِلَيَّ بِالنَّوَافِلِ حَتَّى أُحِبَّهُ فَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُ كُنْتُ سَمْعَهُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهِ. That servant slave, if he continues to come closer to me with the voluntary acts, that is, every compulsory act that has been prescribed for us in Islam has along with it a voluntary version. We have Hajj, we have Umrah. We have Fard Salah, and we have Sunnah Salah. We have Zakah, we have Sadaqah. You know, we have fasting in Ramadan, we have fasting 3 days a month, Mondays and Thursdays, etc., etc. All of the various compulsory deeds that are required of us have along with them some voluntary version, a voluntary set of deeds that may be done also. And after a person has established the compulsory, if he continues to build on that with the voluntary, he continues to come closer and closer to Allah. Until Allah says, I love him. Until I love him. So if we seek the love of Allah, this is the methodology. Step by step. We don't jump to the voluntary and we've left out the compulsory. We start with the compulsory. After we have established that, then we build on that with the voluntary. And when we do that, Allah will love us. This is Allah's promise. And when He loves us, He says that He will become the ears by which we hear. Of course, as I said, you have a deviant group that have interpreted this to mean that the person becomes Allah. Right? But of course this is nonsense. We already pointed out in Tawheed that there's no man becoming Allah. Right? No matter what you do in this life, you know, not like the Hindus have this idea of nirvana, you know, you die and you come back, you die and you come back, you keep going up and up and up until eventually you reach the stage where you become one with Allah. Right? This idea is foreign to Islam. Man is man and Allah is Allah. Man never becomes Allah. Allah never becomes a man. Allah says that when He loves His servant who has established the compulsory and followed it by the voluntary, then he becomes the ears by which he hears and the eyes by which he sees. This is in reference to the fact that the one who has come close to Allah by doing what was prescribed for him and recommended to him, then he will only listen to the things which are pleasing to Allah. This is what, he only listens to good things. If somebody is talking nonsense, he says, okay, ma salama, you know, I'll go my way, you know. Don't waste his time. No sense getting that nonsense in his head. He only listens to the things which are pleasing to Allah. He only looks to the things which are pleasing to Allah. And this is the highest level that we can seek, where in every action that we do, we seek the pleasure of Allah. This is the essence of righteousness. We are conscious of Allah, and whatever we do so remembering that this is what Allah wishes for us, and avoiding those things which He has prohibited us. The worship of Allah also includes love. The human emotion, love, becomes an act of worship when it is in accordance with the will of Allah. That we should love Allah and His Messenger more than all else. This is a requirement. This is a requirement of faith. For the believer, he must love Allah and His Messenger more than all of the creation. His father, his son, his family, they are secondary in love to Allah and His Messenger. If a person loves his wife or his child more than he loves Allah, then he is committing shirk. It is a big mistake. And this is why you find the verse in the Quran where Allah speaks about your wealth and your wives and your children are enemies to you, so beware of them. I mean, sometimes if you read that verse, if you're not really aware of the context, it sounds very strange. You know, Islam encourages you to get married and have children, and then Allah is telling you in the Quran that your wives and your children are enemies to you. Beware of them. They're enemies to you if you allow your love of them to be greater than your love of Allah. How? If your wife wants to do something which you know is displeasing to Allah, but you love her so much, you allow her to do it. See, then, pleasing her becomes more important to you than pleasing Allah. See, very dangerous. And you see, this statement, you know, that you commonly hear in the Western concept of love, you know, I love you more than anything else, you know. I would do anything for you. No. As a Muslim, we can't say these things. Our love can't reach. This is only for Allah. We only say that to Allah. Because once our love reaches that level for His creation, then we have deviated. We have deviated. And this is why, you know, Allah speaks in the Quran also of those who love, who have taken others besides Allah, and they love them the way that they love Allah. But Allah describes the believers as being ashaddu hubban lillah. But the believers, their love is always greater for Allah. Of course, for many of us, this may be a little difficult to grasp, in the sense that, you know, your love for your parents, this is something very tangible, very real. You know, how you can develop a higher level of that love for Allah, you know, who is intangible in the sense that you can't see Him, touch Him, you know, this type of thing. You know, how does one develop? Well, the thing is that Islam is not asking for that love. That love, which is a natural process or natural product of relationships, wherein your mother delivered you, she raised you, suckled you, protected you, so you have developed an attachment to her, which you refer to as love, that it's not expected for you to hold that to Allah.